What's up, everyone? It's Hotline Link episode 155, the first episode of the new year. And we're not starting this off with me feeling sick and Mark having technical issues. No, we're starting exactly at 8 o'clock. And that's what all the people that watch on VOD and podcast will be.
And it'll just mysteriously be an hour and a half instead of 2.
Yes, exactly. Anyway, I want to say before we get into anything else, thank you to Alienware and Draftbuff. Draftbuff returning the show for the start of the split. You can go check out their stuff. And, of course, thank you to Alienware for being with us in this episode. As always, we got a lot to talk about because while there was not much that happened for a while, last week there was a decent amount of stuff that happened. And then I think this week there's a ton of stuff that's about to happen. So let's see. What do we got? We got the new brand reveal for LCS. We've got all the content that they did that's along with that. We've got all the new people that are going to be part of the LCS broadcast. There's a ton of people. There is the fact that the tournament is starting soon and the lock-in tournament. And then there's the groups that have been drawn for that. So there's a ton of different stuff to talk about on this episode. Mark did a power rankings that's available on my channel. Now you guys can go check it out. I hope we get a couple calls tonight of people that want to argue with him about that. So there's a whole lot to talk about. Mark moved. He's in a new location. Looking good. I like that you have an Alienware PC in the background. That's actually really good.
That's the one you sent me. That's Ashley's.
Yeah. Well, regardless, quite cool.
Also, is it first time since New Year's?
First time since before
the
Christmas.
holidays? Since the holidays, either way.
Yeah. Yes.
So I guess we have to say what we've been up to. What have you been up to, Travis? What are your New Year's resolutions?
Your enthusiasm. I hear it in your voice right now.
What are you going to lie to yourself that you're doing this year?
No, I don't make New Year's resolutions because I don't keep them. But no, I had a great holiday break. It was really, really fun. It was super good to get back into playing video games. I played a lot of Cyberpunk. I realize that game has mixed reviews, but I've been enjoying it, in part probably because I have a crazy $3,000 something Alienware PC that has a 3090
Alienware
in it.
saved Cyberpunk for you.
Yes, exactly. There's a lot of bugs, but I'm really enjoying it. And what else? It's just been really good. So I had a really nice holiday. Really had a good time. And then honestly, it's been hard to get back into the swing of things. Like I'm excited for Lock-in Tournament to hit this weekend because it'll finally feel like, all right, it's time to get back into the grind. And I've been trying to kind of get that motivation last week and this week, but it's been a slow start to the year. But anyway.
Yeah. I can relate to that. I had the same feeling. Also, I was moving too, so I was like doing a bunch of stuff and I didn't have any motivation to do anything. And then we started doing meetings last week and looking to do a dive and like all this stuff started. So I was like, oh, I guess it's beginning.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, were there any highlights for you during the holidays? Did you play any games in particular?
No, I mentioned this to your chat before we started recording. I've been playing a Final Fantasy gacha game mobile thing. Final Fantasy.
You're back on that. That's what you were playing during Worlds alongside Genshin.
So what happened was I was playing both as just like a gacha degen lord, and I actually stopped playing Genshin but kept playing this one. And it's bad, but I love it. What can I do? It's just mindless grinding for progression of something that I don't actually care about, but it gives me a sense of a dopamine hit, a serotonin hit. I don't know, some drugs.
Well, I will say, I know that we didn't have a guest for the last episode. To be completely honest, we did try to get guests for this episode, but I think a lot of people are just trying to buckle in and get ready for LCS. So a lot of the people we reached out to are like, they basically said, we're going to come on next week or the week after or whatever. So we should return to having a bunch of guests on the show in the future. And I look forward to doing all that then. But for the time being, it's the two of us and Twitch chat. But we've had some amazing calls in the past several weeks, I feel like. So I don't worry too much when we don't have a third.
And to be honest, you and I are better than the third ever is, and they're just there so we can use their name power before we inevitably carry them through 2 hours of this show.
So true. So true. Anywho, so we've got all those things. Actually, we should do just a quick. I know we're starting a little late, so we can make it go through pretty quickly. But let's go through a couple things really quickly. One, what's your take on the LCS rebrand? And I know that you're on the broadcast and that type of thing, so I'm sure you're going to be nice and diplomatic. But what have you liked, and what would you like to see a little different, or maybe isn't meeting your tastes?
Well, I like none of it, and I would change all of it. I would say I'm not the type of person who's like cares much about aesthetics. I mean, like the kind of hipper, flat look versus the shield and traditional sport look. Like, I mean, I grew up playing like traditional sports. Like, I kind of have a fondness for that, but like, I don't really care. What I care about how like content's going to get overhauled this year, much more than like the rebrand. Like I care about like what we're bringing to that new brand beyond the graphics packages and stuff like that. So I think to me this was fine. I don't super care, and I just want the content to not to be getting flamed frequently on Reddit. That's my goal this year. See less threads about the analyst desk sucking. Is that a good goal?
I don't know if using Reddit as a guidepost for your goals is ever a good idea, to be completely honest, because I feel like you can never make them happy. But I think it's fair. I think a lot of people are hoping that LCS in 2021 is able to have a better showing in a lot of ways than LCS did in 2020.
Yeah, teams, please.
For my end, I kind of I have mixed feelings on the logo. The logo feels. There was somebody, or maybe even a couple people in the Reddit thread that were like, "This logo looks kind of like the TG logo that I use."
Yeah.
And I mean, you can see it right now on the screen underneath Hotline League. We do a diamond with like
some
the letters, kind of like whatever. More, I think Ovily's pointing out that it looks a lot like the Squarespace logo is a little bit closer. I also just know that like people didn't like the LEC logo for a while, and now it feels like everyone's kind of fine with it. I really don't like the color. The color is the thing that like I have struggled with more.
You mean for the LCS one, right?
Yeah, for the LCS. The sort of purple color. There's like an official name for it that I've heard, but I don't know if I'm allowed to say it publicly. So I don't know if colors are secrets now, but maybe it's like a term that they.
I don't know. Live on the edge, dude. Say the color so I can paint my walls the same way I can find it.
Have you heard the term Vinca used yet?
I haven't heard Vinca.
I don't think Vinca's under. I don't know. Maybe I'm going to get an angry message in a second from somebody who's hearing me talk.
I'll go try and find it at Home Depot so I can body paint myself.
I mean, if you do it with the background of your home, I'm sure that would look good on the broadcast. So yeah, that is interesting. I do. And then I want to do a separate video talking about the trailer, or the hype video. I'm pretty happy with the hype video given. So one, people might notice that my voice is in it. I don't know if anybody did, but my voice is in the hype video, and I want to do a video talking about that. I think given the sort of COVID restraints and that type of thing, it came out pretty good. There's some stuff in there where I'm like, it's time to retire the pigeon. It's a very outdated reference, and so like that's kind of weird. And I'm still not sure. Like the cosplayers kind of worked out okay, but I think they feel a little out of place to me. But maybe when it's hard to get access to players because they're in different countries and all that stuff, it's like helpful to show other folks. I mean, they're wonderful people. I like them, but especially Stella Chu's great. I've interviewed her before, but
I think it was also.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, like, with the whole "Made by Many" slogan too. I think like the idea being that the League of Legends esports scene is made up of many different branches. It's not just pro players. It's not just this. Like when you go to events, there is a lot of cosplay. Even when there's no cosplay events, like people just cosplay to finals and things like that. So I can get the angle at least. Like
I get it too. It's just sort of like I don't know. What I will say is I'm really happy that Riot is changing. Like for a long time, they like just sort of, it felt like they did a really good job of creating a really exciting product with LCS. And then for a while, they just kind of were like, they got very comfortable. And I think that's a lot of what I've talked about in 2019 and 2020. And so I'm happy that they're trying different stuff. I think that video feels very different than something they would have put out. Like there's no like players just crossing their arms over and over again and saying like, this year's my year. So I think it's nice to see some change there. So anyway, we're going to talk about that. I'm curious what people think about it. We can talk about the groups, which I guess I should pull up so that we can get access to it. And
Oh, that's a good idea. I have spring pulled up, but I should actually have the lock-in tournament pulled up.
Yeah, is there a convenient, maybe on the LCS Twitter, there's a convenient graphic that I can pull up?
Leaguepedia. It's usually your spot. I love Leaguepedia.
Okay, cool. I actually found the graphic. We should start.
Oh, does that have the draft order?
It has just the groups. It doesn't have the draft order. But I think that's okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, should we actually I'll just ask you really quickly what your thoughts are on the groups if you think that they're balanced. I mean, they were drafted. The draft they didn't do like a draft show or didn't show it getting drafted, which I think is a little disappointing. I know that they publicly commented. I think that it was. I think they gave a reason, which was just that it was really difficult to do right now.
And this is an order. For people who don't know, it was basically Nemesis draft, which means TSM picked who went into FlyQuest's group first, and then FlyQuest picked who went into TSM's group, and then the team under TSM who had just got placed would pick the next team, and then they would ping pong back and forth.
So TL sent EG to Group B.
So TL sent to EG, and then C9 would have sent 100 Thieves. 100 Thieves would have picked Dig. EG would have picked CLG. So in that sense, I think Group A looks a lot stronger because I think FlyQuest doesn't, even though they were technically the second best team last year, it's 5 new players. So I don't think that they're not for me in, like a big threat, even though I think I have the number 5 on my power ranking, whereas Group A has 1, 3, and 4 of my power ranking. So I would expect Group A to be a little bit more contentious early on, but the whole thing might be shot to hell depending on what happens with subs and stuff like that, and visas and whatnot. So
does that mean Dig sent Golden Guardians to Group A?
Yes.
Okay.
Over Immortals.
Interesting. Because so many people, I think, have been placing.
I should preface this. I might be wrong. Maybe there was like a snake component, where it was like 2 something. But even then, no. Immortals would still. I think Immortals would be last, right? No, Golden Guardians would be last because Immortals would get placed and then someone would place Golden Guardian over. No, Golden Guardians was last.
Okay, so Golden Guardians was draft, like they are considered the weakest in the draft.
Yes, but based off the team's thing.
Gotcha. Well, whatever. Let's get some calls going then so that people can talk about all this stuff. I'm starting to feel a little bit better, so hopefully I'm not going to be ill during the show. But we're going to find out. And without a guest here, Mark will just have to carry on if that happens. Anyway, Mark is going to grab the callers. By the way, if this is your first time watching, which I'd be shocked if this is your first time watching. It's kind of a slow show as we are getting into everything at the beginning of the year. But it's a call-in show, so people call in, and you can put your topics in the pleb or subtopics channel. We do appreciate whenever people sub. By the way, thank you so much for the people that have subbed this stream. My sub count has just gotten demolished and plummeted over the course of the break because I haven't streamed. That's the cost of taking time off.
Before you start, I gotta say, if you're in the waiting room, make sure you undeafen Snailchip and anyone else who ends up getting dragged there. Anyways, you're good.
Brekky is here. Brekky, where are you calling from?
I'm from a small town near Yosemite National Park.
Nice. You've called in before, right?
I have not called in before.
Have you subbed?
Sub? No, I've never subbed to your channel.
Why does your name seem so familiar? Anyway, whatever. Next. What do you want to talk about? Is it snowing there, by the way?
Not in my town. A couple thousand feet up it is.
Okay, nice.
Yeah.
Well, what do you want to talk about in the show tonight?
Yeah, my hot take is that 100 Thieves are a top 2 team.
Ooh. Okay, so then who's the other team?
So I thought I could break this into 2 parts. First, I want to talk about the strengths of 100 Thieves and why I think they're a top 2 team.
Who's your other team?
I think this is so painful because I'm a huge C9 fan, but I think that if 100 Thieves are a top 2 team, it's going to be C9 dropping to 3rd.
Okay.
And it sucks because I'm a huge C9 fan.
So who's your other team?
Oh, Team Liquid.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
so TL and 100T are the 2 best teams in the league, and C9 will be the 3rd.
Yes.
Sorry, you wanted to construct your argument in a certain way. Do you want to Repeat.
Before
Yeah.
we torpedo it.
No, it's good. So I just want to talk about, first of all, like why, because obviously I think the consensus is that C9 and TL are the top two teams, and obviously mine's a hot take. So I think talking about the summer split, I think FBI and Huhi were the best bot duo. I think the only other bot duo to contest that would be Tactical and Core JJ. Obviously, Sven and Vulcan were like really good in spring, but they kind of faltered. And then for Someday, I think that he has been just such a constant where no matter how bad the 100 Thieves team is, he's always in a top three. Like he's always in contention for top three top laners. And I think that now he finally has a solid team to back him up. And I think he's just going to flourish. And then for DeMonte, I actually have his Leaguepedia up right now. I think that, so basically when he was on Golden Guardians, it was mainly him and bot lane and also closer who were carrying. But now that the carry role can move to top and bot, he's actually, I think, a much better supportive mid laner. He had a lot of games where, like, for example, he went 0-1 and 12 as a Twisted Fate one game. He also went 3-0 and 8, 1-0 and 10 on Zoe. Like, he's very good at supporting and being like a passive mid laner. And so I think that is just going to flourish in this sort of format where he's not going to have to take on the carry responsibility, that he'll be able to give it to Someday and FBI.
Okay, but I look, I really love DeMonte. But
I love DeMonte.
You're pushing out a mid laner. I don't know. Go ahead.
Yeah, so what I love about this 100 Thieves team is that every single lane, top, jungle, mid, and bot, all of them have the potential to carry. And so I think that with that, DeMonte is not going to have the pressure of feeling like he needs to carry. Like it'll be much easier for him to kind of take a step back and be a supportive mid laner.
Do you think 100T would beat C9 in a matchup?
So here's my take on C9. I think that C9 has the potential to be the best team in the league, but I think there's a lot of question marks. Not to say that Perks is going to be bad, but I think that this is going to be the first time he's ever played on an org that wasn't G2. So he may have a little bit of time to adjust, being on C9, playing with different players, living in a different country. And then Fudge, obviously, he could be great. He could falter. Will Blabber be a coin flip? Will Sven and Vulcan return the form? I just think there are a lot of question marks in that C9 roster where I think if all of them are at their best ability, they will crush, they will dominate. They'll be the best team, but there's just too many question marks for me right now.
So do you think 100T would beat C9 in a matchup?
I think they could.
I mean, you better hope that they. It's interesting to hear you say that they could. Whenever you're saying that 100T will be better than
so it's more
C9.
It's more of like I feel so bad because C9 is my favorite team, so I want to talk about how great they are, but I really think that 100 Thieves are like an actual good team this year.
I mean, like the weird thing for me is like this call almost feels more like, you know, looking at my own power ranks. You know, I had C9 1, TL2, this 100 Thieves 3, but it's more like, well, C9 is not going to work out in your mind. Like the blabberness synergy is never going to be there. Perks isn't going to look as dominant as EU. Fudge won't work. You know, like it's more like you're saying things about C9 than, I mean, you did talk a lot about 100 Thieves, but like, I don't know. I just can't, like, to Travis's point, like a 5-game series, and I know that's not what the regular season is, and this is maybe more about regular season placing, but like, no offense to DeMonte, but like that's a tough fucking 5-game series to go up against
Perks
for a bunch of games in a row.
Oh, I see. I was trying to figure out why you were distracted, and you're just being.
My cat just hopped up on here.
Yeah. Well, anyway,
flinging that booty around,
ruining the show as always. Okay, that's what we're doing. We're getting the crotch shot. I mean, it's very funny because I think when Mark placed 100T third, and a lot of other people have been kind of, I feel like the courageous thing, like the cliche courageous thing to do right now is to place 100T high and be like, "Oh, I'm going to put 100T high," because, you know, like people are big TSM fans, but if I rank, I'm not saying this is what Mark did, but like, if you want to do something that's like you feel a little bold, you like go and you stick 100T a little high. I'm not saying that they're not going to do well, but it's funny to me because a lot of people have been like Mark received. I think the only criticism he received in the Reddit thread about his power rankings was like, oh, people are overrating 100T. So now you're saying that they're going to be top 2. It's like, I don't know if Mark is overrating them, but if he is, like placing them top 2 is pretty bold. So
I mean, it's a hot take show, right?
Yes. No, I know. I don't know, Mark. I mean,
I mean,
I'm glad you and I are both here so that we can fit out such great opinions. I guess for me, the question is like, I don't think it's that crazy to think that C9 can have a slow start. I actually don't think it's that wild to think that. And that by contrast, 100T, who for the most part are Golden Guardians, they probably will be, the other teams won't be expecting much from them, or as much as like, the TLs and C9s of the world. And you slot in Someday, who perhaps has like had a hard time with some of his other teammates in the past, that they overperform, so C9 underperforms. This is kind of how you get here. I just feel like it's not, even though it could happen, I don't think it's likely to happen. I think it's the way that I would put it.
I also think, from what you were saying earlier, like how much of Golden Guardians surging at the end was a part meta situation where mid lane really didn't feel that super important towards the end of playoffs and into Worlds. And we'll have to see how that goes this time. And bot lane was arguably the most important, I think, in some ways. So I don't know. It's a good point about like, well, how much of Golden Guardians surge at the end of the season was other factors. And
I think they got a lot of credit for doing so well against TSM. I don't know. I mean, it might be revisionist history, but like how much of an accomplishment was it actually in hindsight for them beating TSM? I mean TSM did win. Yeah. They did win the split. I totally get it, but I don't know. Like it seemed like they were trying to figure stuff out, and it took Game 3 of their Golden Guardians match for them to actually turn it on. And then after that, they looked pretty good. So I don't know. I struggle to sort of know how good Golden Guardians was last time. I think FBI was really great.
I mean, like I believe in their bot lane. Of all things, the thing that I think would be the most consistent between splits would be their bot lane. I could see Demonte and Closer. They were like good, but they were hit or miss, and like some of their plays didn't work out when they went aggressive over the course of the regular season. If people remember, they often got gold leads, but then would kind of lose those gold leads. When you look at the non-playoff form of Golden Guardians, and like that could come back. Maybe they regress in that regard. So I don't know. I think 100 Thieves is one of those teams, like you said, Travis. I think you're right that a lot of people are like, ooh, hot take. I don't think it's hot at all. They were a top 4 team almost last year. They lost to TSM twice, and then they got an upgrade at top lane. So like, I don't think it's weird at all to put them in top 4. I think when you start putting them above C9, though, that's I can't get on board with. Can't do it.
Yeah, I think those are totally fair points. I do agree that I think the meta really favored them, and now that bot lane or the ADC position is just totally in a super bad spot right now, I think that there's potential that. What's that?
I don't think so. AD carries are. I mean, they're doing their usual like gearing up and whining, and it was pretty bad when tanks were like giga busted at the start of the preseason. But now that tanks have been pulled down, I think they're fine. Bot lane's fine. They're just whiners.
Yeah, so I just think that like 100 Thieves really has a lot of potential, especially now that they're basically Golden Guardians with Someday. Like I think that adding Someday to this roster is going to be huge for them, and that their peak last split will not be their peak this split. Like they'll have a higher peak, and so I think that it'll be more of like, instead of people talking about C9 and TL being top 2, people are going to be talking about like C9, TL, 100 Thieves being top 3, and like those top 3 positions can be like interchangeable, I guess.
Really quickly before we say goodbye to Brekky, Mark, do you think it's safe to say there's a good chance we're going to have 4 good teams in LCS this year?
define good. Like, oh, any of these teams could win, or just like not painful to watch. You know,
Like they can all take games off each other, even if they're not all at the same skill level, right? Like by contrast, last year it felt we had one good team for a very long time, right? Which was C9, and then everything.
Yeah, I mean, well, Spring Split was just a disaster with like what happened with TL and stuff.
So is there a world where like we're going to be like, oh wow, these 4 teams are kind of demolishing everybody else, and they seem to be able to take games off each other, and they all seem like good for NA standards?
I think it largely comes down to like TL and C9. Like if they actually are, I feel like they're a tier above the TSM and 100 Thieves, even if things work out well for them. Like when those players are performing on C9 and TL, there are areas on the other teams where they can't rise to that level. Like, you know, Demonte playing well is not Perks playing well, and like Lost playing well is not Sven playing well, at least what we've seen so far in his career. You know, like they have weaknesses more on those other lineups that can just get skill gapped in a series.
Very good. Well, either way, Brekky, thank you so much for the call. I really enjoyed the take. What do you anything you want to shout out before we move on to the next caller?
Yeah, I wanted to give a quick shout out to Captain Flowers. I was in his chat on stream a couple of weeks ago asking him for dating advice because I was going on my first date, and he told me to wash my ass, and it went well.
Were they causally related at all, or was this more of a superstitious thing?
No, I like genuinely had dating advice, and he actually was just like, "Yep, don't be afraid to be yourself. If you like nerdy shit, talk about nerdy shit." And he also said to wash my ass.
Great. Glad you shared that with the class. Thank you so much, Brekky.
Yeah.
Have a good one. Okay.
That's why we love Hotline League, you know? How many other League talk shows are going to have that gem in there?
Hopefully none. Anyway, let's grab the next. Oh, wow. He pulled a big waiting room. We got a lot of callers tonight. Thank you to Weird Dude 25 for gifting a sub to Draftbuff, Ryu, Jaffe58, Aldor, Blue Jay, Kyle0808 for those 10 gifted subs, America Vespucci, Graysphere, and Bankshot. We got Snailchip here. Snailchip, where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Cedar City, Utah.
I'm going to turn you up a little bit more. Where in Utah?
Cedar City.
Cedar City. What do you want to talk about on the show tonight?
So my take is that TSM is going to be a 6th place team with Cloud9, Team Liquid, 100 Thieves, FlyQuest, and Evil Geniuses all beating them out. My logic, I guess, I think Cloud9 and Team Liquid are top 2, and I think they're interchangeable. It'll just kind of come down to the day, in my opinion. And I think 100 Thieves and FlyQuest are 3rd and 4th for sure. For that, I think, like the last caller was saying, I just think 100 Thieves have a great team from last split, and then some days an upgrade in the top lane. I think the only question mark on their team is Demonte, who I do think is probably 5th or 6th best mid laner in the league. But I feel like with the rest of the team being like FBI and Huhi.
Okay, but I thought you were talking about TSM, and now we're talking about 100 team.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. I'm just going through.
Just go real quick through the others.
Okay, FlyQuest, Licorice, Jose Diodo, and Johnson are all great players in their roles. I think they're better than I think Jose Diodo and Licorice are both better than TSM's top and jungle. Evil Geniuses, I think they have better players in the entire top half of the map, that with top lane, jungle, and mid lane. I think their bot lane's not amazing, but I don't think it'll matter. I think the only 2 good things with TSM is Power of Evil and Sword Art. I think Lost and Spica are both good players, and I think Huni's a good player, but I just feel like the other teams all have something better in those roles.
Okay. So I think if I was to do power rankings, I would definitely place TSM in the top 4. However, Mark, does it seem crazy to you to imagine TSM starting and just looking really messy for like the first half of, I guess not spring split, but like the tournament and then the first several weeks of spring split? I feel like that's such a TSM thing.
I mean, it's super possible that they implode, but that's like, you know, that can happen to any team. Like, who would have fucking said that about TL last year, you know? When you're like, oh, they got Broxa for Smithy. Maybe it's a downgrade. Boom, 9th. You know, like, oh, it wasn't that big of a downgrade. You know, other things happen. So, you know, it's possible that TSM underperforms. But some of the other points about like, oh, they got better top jungle. It's like, well, what about mid lane? Like, I'm excited to see Palafox, but Palafox versus PoE, really? You know, like PoE is way better. So like, I think there's areas that they have considerable strengths over to a lot of the teams below them, or that I put below them, that you're putting above them for the caller.
Caller, do you have a
Yeah,
follow-up on that?
I think I should maybe like reword it. I feel like it's not so much TSM's like guaranteed 6th place, but I feel like it's weird to put them in the top 3 above 100 Thieves and FlyQuest specifically, because I feel like they're kind of on the same like level as those two. And then Evil Geniuses, I mean, in the same breath, is it super weird to think that Evil Geniuses are going to come out with mostly the same roster but better players in the roles they switched, like, and do better than TSM if TSM has a weak split. I think that's my reasoning. But TSM, Evil Geniuses, and FlyQuest could honestly be interchangeable, but I wouldn't put them top 4.
I'm trying to think through this. I like, it's more, I kind of, it's weird where I'm kind of torn between the two of you. I agree with Mark that like the fundamentals for TSM should give them a very strong lead when you're ranking them against like EG or FlyQuest, for instance.
Sword Art versus Diamond.
Right.
No offense, Diamond, who's always in the chat, but like world finalist versus Academy finalist.
Right. LCS Academy Worlds. Isn't it Academy Worlds? Is that what they call it?
Yeah.
However, it just like, I don't know, maybe TSM's going to show up in Smash. I mean, I feel like we've heard some rumors of that they're looking pretty good in scrims. Maybe I'm crazy, but I feel like I've kind of heard that stuff. But it does feel like, because there's been so much change at TS. I mean, I guess FlyQuest did the same thing too. I don't know. It's weird in that, like, when you're ranking all these teams, C9 and TL feel really easy to place. Maybe like Golden Guardians and Dig feel really easy to place, and then everything else seems kind of fluid. Mark, you're face palming right now.
I don't know. It's just the most Travis take I ever.
I'm thinking through it. I'm thinking through it.
Aside for the two teams that spent $5 million on their roster and the two teams that spent 2 pennies on their roster, I can't really place the others.
Well, no, because this is why I'm thinking through this right now. Admittedly, I get that sounds like kind of a weak take, or like an obvious take. But everybody else seems to be so confident in their power rankings. Like, one of the top things in that power ranking subreddit thread for you was like, yeah, this is how everyone's going to look. But like, at the end of the day, the middle of the pack might feel a little bit more mushy than everyone seems to think of it whenever they're ranking these guys.
I mean, I tried to, in the video, give like the highs and lows for each team, where I'm like, you know, this can go right and this can go wrong kind of thing. But like, there's ceilings on some of these teams, you know, like, and this is my opinion, obviously, but like, there's a ceiling on how high I think CLG will climb. There's a ceiling on how high I think Immortals can climb. That ceiling for me isn't there for a TSM. Like, CLG don't, like, I know we're not talking about CLG here, but like, to me, they don't have a superstar. They don't have a player who can pop off, and that's been okay for, like I said in the video, for FlyQuest in the past. But like, lo and behold, almost every single player on that roster was top half of the league in their position, as well as probably top 3, with some of them pushing top 1, like Santorin. Like, unless CLG's no superstars are all actually like borderline all pro, then there's like, how are you going to consistently like win games? Who's the hard carry for this lineup? What's your strategy? Same with like, you know, Immortals, or you know, whereas on TSM side, like, people competing on the world stage recently, people who have had histories of this, you know, so I don't know, you know, PoE was in 2 finals in North America last split. You played spring and summer and then went to worlds, you know, like, these people, like, I don't know, there's higher peaks. And so that's why it's I think easier to rank the teams in the middle than you're giving it credit for. When you look at like Immortals, is like, okay, unless Raze turns out to be FBI 2.0 and absolutely stomps in, like Xerxes returns to form, and Revenge is actually way better than he looked in Academy. Like, how's that team going to compete?
All right, you convinced me. Collier, you're crazy for not placing TSM in the top 5. Mark overpowered you. I'm sorry.
I understand.
I don't know, but we'll see. I mean, I appreciate you calling in and giving the TSM is going to be bad take, because I feel like we always need to have one of those. That's the spirit of the show.
So I actually picked Snailchip to go first, but he was muted. I wanted to start the show off with the TSM is doo-doo take.
It's Snailchip, by the way.
Snail trail.
Snailchip. Thank you for the call. Anything you want to shout out before we go on to a quick break?
Yeah, shout out Alienware. I'm trying to buy my girlfriend a PC from them. And then also shout out to my Draftbuff group for letting me get perks. I appreciate you guys. Can't wait to win it. And that's it. Thank you guys for having me.
Very good. Awesome to hear you're supporting both of our sponsors. I really appreciate that, Snailchip.
No problem.
Have a good one.
Goodbye.
All right. On that note, we're going to take a quick break and talk about Alienware. So first off, it'd be great if everyone could just tweet at Alienware and say, hey, I really like Travis Gafford's content. Please continue to work with him, because we're still figuring out 2021 stuff. Their fiscal year ends in the end of January, so we got to... Anyway,
if there's any hope for Hotline League, Travis needs to be able to pay my bills.
Yeah, Mark has incredibly expensive tastes. And anyway, thank you so much to Alienware for sponsoring us over the past couple years, hopefully to many more years into the future. And I want to thank all of you who have done so much to support us. I'm not worried. I'm mostly just teasing, but I do think it's fun whenever you guys all send them nice messages or send them pictures of the new computers that you've purchased or monitors or peripherals, all that stuff. You can go check those out at alienware.com/Travis. If you are looking for anything right now, you're in the market, you are trying to find something to run, for instance, Cyberpunk, because maybe you bought it on the PS4 and you were like, wow, this is, let's just say NVIDIA has some great ways of powering video games like that.
Maybe you need emulators to run your gotcha game on your phone.
Thanks, Mark.
Using your phone's battery. Alienware can do that too.
I think if we don't get the Alienware contract renewed, we know which part of the
you know what to sink that ship.
Anyway, check out Alienware. They've got some really cool stuff. By the way, Dell's announcing some cool stuff or I think already did for CES this coming week too. So I don't know if I haven't heard anything from Alienware, but actually Alienware I think did get nominated for some CES awards with their new monitor for their they won the Innovation Award for their Alienware 25 gaming monitor, which has 360 hertz refresh rate and this NVIDIA reflex latency analyzer. So it's pretty cool to see that they've got award-winning products over there, and it's really exciting to see how they are just releasing so many cool things every year. Really enjoy working with them. Thank you so much to Alienware for sponsoring the show. And be sure to use Travis10 off Q4 to save 10% off your order of wonderful Alienware products. Again, at alienware.com/Travis. There's a link in the description below if you're watching us on YouTube. All right, on to the next caller.
All right.
By the way, Aldor, I noticed that I announced your sub, but I missed that it's tier 2. So thank you for being a tier 2 sub. I appreciate that. DFitch97, Daniel N92 for 27 months, Jamie 92. Oh, Daniel N92 and Jamie 92? Are you guys, do you know each other? You're both born the same. Spencer 1292. Holy crap. All three of these people all subbed at once, and just now realizing they all ended 92. Drew is here. Drew, where are you calling from?
Outside Detroit, Michigan.
Outside of Detroit, Michigan. Wait, did you go to the Hotline League live?
No.
All right.
I was not there.
I appreciate that.
Anyway, what do you want to talk about on the show?
My take was that the LCS rebrand is going to create the most exciting spring split in the modern LCS era.
I just realized we did It's been over a year, so we did one in St. Louis. We didn't do one in Detroit. So Drew, that was a trick question. We figured out that you didn't.
I was
lie.
not in the Detroit event at all. Yeah.
Okay. Well, anyway,
Man, my arm's like the same
Mark-
color as that white. Look at that.
Mark,
It's
can
like,
we talk
my
about
arm
the
like
take,
blends in.
please? You put your arms up. You're very excited about this. Why are you excited about this? Before we let.
Oh, I
Drew
don't know. It's
elaborate?
just broadcast hype. What do you want?
Okay. Well, Drew, go ahead and elaborate on your take.
I don't really care that much about the logo and stuff, but in terms of the content that they've already put out, with the whole like made by many video as well as showcasing the on-air talent, the whole made by many video, like showcasing off tactical and I think it was FBI and Spica, shows that the LCS like understands that they need new faces to replace the superstars that retired in Bjergsen and Doublelift. And then as well as the showcasing off all the new on-air talent they got with Raz and Emily Rand and such, as well as like Hai and Alorum, make it super exciting. And it's just a big change from what was a lot of.
What did you? So I'm not trying to dunk on High here, but High is not that big of a change considering like he was not on the desk last year, but he was on the year before then.
Well, he was always just guest intermittently, right? He was never super consistent.
No, I think he was on for an entire split. This was in 2019, right, Mark? Or was it the beginning of last year? Last year feels so fractured in my mind because of COVID.
No, it was 2019 because we were in the studio for the whole time with High.
Okay.
I don't remember if it was the entirety of 2019 or just spring or just summer or something, but we definitely had at least a full split with High.
Yeah, where he was on every time.
There was the one, where we ate the hot chip and like all that stuff. Some pretty good stuff.
Yeah.
But,
go ahead, though, Drew.
But yeah, I mean, either way, they got a lot of, big name pickups on the analyst desk and such. So I know personally, I'm pretty excited to see Emily Rand on the analyst desk because she makes a lot of top tier content around some other regions that could be cool to showcase, as well as Reyes is pretty exciting caster, and I thought he did pretty fantastic at Worlds this year.
Okay, so here I'll go, and then I'll let Mark kind of.
You go. I can't disagree with anything he's saying. Everything's perfect.
Mark Zimmerman of the LCS broadcast is unsurprisingly
agrees. The broadcast will be great.
So, I'm trying to find the full list. Did they just tweet it out? They didn't put it on the website. I'm trying to figure out how I feel about their approach to the new names. I think for one, it's a little weird that they just sort of like, here's all the people, and then they just list them out without quite giving us all an understanding of where these people are going to end up, because right now it feels like all these people are going to be on the desk all the time or casting, but I've heard from some people that some of them are only going to be in like the shoulder content. So it's kind of odd that we don't really know who is where and what is what. Like, for instance, I don't know, like Keen has done content for them in the past. I don't know if he's going to be on the desk, for instance, but it was somewhat implied to me that like that's not always going to be the case. Regardless, it's kind of, I'm really excited about Raz and I'm really excited about Emily. A lot of the other folks for me are kind of question marks. I'm not sure. So for instance, that's Primal, who I like. He follows me. I follow him on Twitter. Oh wait, I don't follow him on Twitter. I guess I'll follow him.
Fucking liar.
In the past, I have followed him. Maybe I unfollowed him at some point in time. I don't know. But he and I go way back. But he used to be like the person that ran a lot of their League Ops stuff. And so it's. I think let's put it this way. I'm not trying to diminish any of the people that they pulled up onto the broadcast, but I think it feels like a lot of what they did with adding in a lot of these folks is they just said to themselves, okay, well, we need like 4 or 5 new people to add to the broadcast. So like, okay, well, we need the old League Ops guy and he's doing some streaming now. So let's grab him. And like, Spawn's in town. Yeah, he's like coaching a team now, but let's grab him. I like Spawn, to be clear. I'm happy. Alorum, he was on the desk before. Hi, we had him on the desk and then decided not to use him on the desk, but like, let's just bring him back. I think what is disappointing to me is like, it does not feel as though the LCS has at this point in time an interest in finding the non-obvious talent, like the people that you don't just personally know. I think it's really exciting whenever you start to build new people. Like, who are the casters that have been grinding it out in amateur for a long time, or are amazing at that? What like, did they do an open casting call at all to try to find anybody? You know, when you just kind of hire people that you just know, I don't know. I'm excited for a lot of these faces. I'm sure a lot of them are going to do great. I just would have liked to have seen them be a little bit more, think outside the box a little bit more, and actually try to like do some casting calls for this type of thing. I don't know. How you want to play this, Mark? How are you going to go?
How do I want to play this? I mean, I think I'll largely ignore everything you said and just say something else.
Sure.
Give my 2 cents on a different direction, which is like a different approach to the analyst desk and countdown and stuff. Because like, I think before there's been a like the goal, which I think hit really well when we had James, Jat, and myself, was like to have a really set desk that did all the post games, did all the countdowns, and it was like just that's it. And you know, we talked a lot about like inside the NBA and like what makes them work and that kind of stuff. And I think after Jat left the first time, for whatever reason, like the magic of that wasn't recaptured the same way with the other lineups. And I think instead of this approach is not trying to do that anymore. It's like we have 3 days of broadcast now, so that's increased, and they brought a lot of people, and there's 2 hosts, and like it's going to be a rotation where there's ideally more variety of talent with more variety of topics that they can cover, instead of like the set people who all just have like, you know, everything for themselves. So I mean, like to the point about Keen and like what's he gonna do? First off, I should say I don't fucking know. But I would expect like he might not be on like post games, but I would expect he's going to be on Countdown with like his own segments and stuff that he can do and whatnot. So like I don't know exactly what all the assignments are going to be, but I think there's a lot more flexibility to try and find cohesive teams that work well together, and then give them places to go on the broadcast. So there's like more flexibility than like, here's the 4 guys, let's hope it works kind of thing.
Yeah, I'm like, this next thing I say will not be faulting the Riot broadcast, because this is not something that they can adjust for. But I don't have the highest expectations for what this. I would predict that within the first weekend, we will have a thread about how awkward the analyst desk feels. Because, and I say this knowing that you said that one of your resolutions was to avoid that. But, like, you're throwing all these new people on a desk.
That's
and
remote.
They're not in, that's remote. And none of you guys have worked together before, right? Like, I don't know what the composition of the stuff is going to be, but if it's like you, Emily, and that's Primal. I guess Emily and you and I did a show with Kelsey at Yahoo Esports, but it's been obviously a long time. Like, I worry, that's kind of a bit of a concern for me, is I don't know how set up for success a lot of these names are going to be whenever they go out there for the first time. It's remote. There's like weird audio delays or technical issues or whatever. I just get the feeling that they're going to be hit pretty hard. That doesn't mean that I don't place that on Riot, because they obviously needed to expand the cast, and there's no way you can expand the cast, and I was just arguing for them to find new people, right? And have it feel like the synergy is great, but it's just going to be really tough, I think, out the gate. I will say one lineup I'm really hoping to see is you, Raz, and Emily, because I get the feeling I'd love to see you and Raz just like argue at each other, and then Emily try to like break you guys up and be the voice of reason. That's a desk that I would root for to be in existence.
Yeah, I think I mean the nice thing too is that there's going to be a lot of iterations that should hopefully have different strengths. Like, you know, Crumbs, me, and Raz would probably be a really fucking goofy desk, whereas like Emily, High, and I don't know, Crumbs, me, whoever it is, like that would be a much more or Laura, like, that'd be a really analytical desk that can probably really dive into some things that would be a different look. And so like I think that's one of the things I'm excited about, is if we can tailor content to the specific niches of each talent. But I agree that there's going to be growing pains. Like, that you would have no matter what. Even if you fucking had 10 out of 10 casting and like hiring and all this stuff went perfectly smoothly, it would still be like a little like there'd be awkward moments as you start the show out.
There's a lot of people, or at least several people that are in chat that are saying, I'm excited about High. And this is going to sound like I'm dunking on High. I don't mean to, but like people seem to not be a very big fan of High on the desk whenever he was last there. So that's one of the things that was kind of like there were several things that surprised me when the news came out. One is there were some names on there that I don't think people really recognize that I know because I've been around the space a lot, but like I didn't see too many people going like, oh, who's this person? And then there were a lot of people celebrating folks that I think have received hefty criticism in the past for their performances on the broadcast. So I don't know. I think maybe it's nice that like the community is not being as critical as they normally are, but I will say that I expected more of a pushback on this stuff. Maybe I'm just becoming a bitter, jaded individual over time. Esports has.
I missed when it was in season 3 in Redondo Beach, and
that was season 4, by the way.
Well, also I think coming off of last year, where I think it was probably the year that the LCS broadcast probably got the most criticism in several years, I think just adding more talent and like adding more change like is only a good thing, whether there's growing pains or not.
Yeah, I mean, so you say, for instance, Drew, that you think it's going to be like the best in modern times, but I mean, it sounds like Mark doesn't even know who's going to be on the desk with him frequently, considering he says he doesn't know if Keen is going to be on, for instance. I'm guessing that they haven't had a chance to do very much rehearsal and like.
Well, I mean, like I know.
Stuff.
So just to put a little like hold on there. Like I do know my talent, like my assignments for the first week and some of the early people that I'm going to be paired up with. I just haven't said it, but like I'm just saying, like I don't know what exactly the thing is going to look like. That part, like there's still a lot of flexibility. So, yeah. But I do.
Okay, so
I do
maybe you know a lot of people that are going to be on it, but they haven't had much of a chance to do rehearsals. That's not some secret information. You could just look at the calendar and realize that like Riot takes 2 weeks off at the end of the year, and that there were not rehearsals. I know there were not rehearsals for next year going on before then. So it's similar to like when teams show up at this lock-in tournament, I don't expect to see the best performance from them. I think with the lack of rehearsals and time and synergy building between all these different individuals and the fact that it's all going to be remote, I think it's going to be really tough. Mark, actually, I have a question for you that I haven't even asked you off the show, which maybe I should have asked you off the show.
Let's do it.
Are you on the analyst desk all the time still, like you have been for many years? Or is there a chance with all this new talent that you won't be? Like, it'd be interesting if you are the constant in a way that like literally even the desk host isn't, because Dash and La Tigris move around on it.
I think for like the initial phase, like I think I'm working I'll just say I think I'm working all 3 days this weekend.
Okay.
But I don't think that's always going to be the case. And so
so you're going to be more dependent on me to help pay your rent, is what I'm getting.
No, because there was only 2 days of broadcast before. Now there's 3.
There were 3.
So even if I didn't. What? Friday?
Last year they did Friday Night League and Monday Night League. Mark.
Oh shit, you're right. They did Monday Night League. I didn't.
And they did Friday Night League.
When did they do Friday Night League? What are you talking about? Was there Friday Night League last year?
Yes.
There was like the NBA Red Zone thing. Wait, am I tripping?
Oh my! I'm so excited about this moment.
I don't know, dude. All right, it's been a long fucking year.
So Mark, they had in spring Monday Night League, and
yeah, I know
and then they decided that time slot wasn't working, so they moved it to Friday night. So then it became Friday Night League. So
there
were
right.
many.
No,
there were Friday
that.
nights where you were working. So you've been doing.
Yeah. Gabby
so are you realizing? Maybe we're realizing right now that your hours have been cut, and that you're going to make your income will be slashed this year.
Well, so this is another. I don't know if I'll get in trouble for revealing this, but people will find out on Saturday. Like, I'm doing the countdown on Saturday, but I'm not. I think it's Saturday, one of the days. I'm doing the countdown, but I'm not doing the between the analyst desk, right? So I think there's more flexibility in that regard as well about like people can come on and do the countdown, but then might do something else after.
You guys heard it here. They're forcing Mark out of the broadcast. First they came for Ovally. You know what? It's people that associate with me. Kobe's probably next.
You know what's funny is you fucking lied. Remember when you lied and said that I got fired, or like I
didn't say you got fired. I said
you
said we had this big thing that we're sorry, Drew. We're hashing out some personal stuff. At the start of one of the episodes last year,
right at the end, right at going into break, you opened the show with like Mark has a big announcement, he's leaving Riot. Well,
because you said they had you had returned all your stuff to Riot because you had turned in all the technical equipment. Yeah. And I said, "Yep, sorry guys." And I think we said we had some other announcement. Oh, it was because the sponsor that has since fallen through. You and I haven't had a chance to talk about that yet.
Did I make it fall through when I said basically what it was?
No. It's
okay. Thank God.
But you had said, "Are we ready to announce that yet?" I was like, "Oh," so it turned into this joke about Mark, no longer being with Riot, and then some people got confused, and it became a big conversation
on the Reddit thread last week when they announced all the talent. Someone was like, "Wait, is Mark actually still working? I didn't think he was still working there."
Yeah.
And then I had to go in there and be like, "Oh my God, Travis actually bamboozled you." No, like, I'm still all right.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry, Drew. My point is, I think for the most part, Riot is taking some steps in the right direction for the broadcast. I worry that it's going to feel really awkward in the beginning, and there's going to be a ton of growing pains as you introduce a whole bunch of new talent to the show, and they all have to figure stuff out remotely. So I'm not as enthusiastic as you about the start of the year, even if I agree with a lot of the decisions Riot is making. Is that cool?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Nice. Do you want to shout out anything at the end of the call?
Yeah, shout out to Travis Gafford's book channel. Over the holidays, I picked up a bunch of Brandon Sanderson books.
Heyo.
So, thanks for the recommendation.
Nice. Which ones have you read so far?
I've started Elantris. I have the whole Stormlight archive that I haven't got into yet, but that'll be next.
Well, if you can start with Elantris, people consider it to be his weakest book. So if you can get through that, there's way better stuff on the horizon for you.
Yeah, it's not the best book to start with if you don't like, but if you do like it, then you got through it and it doesn't feel like a step back if you went backwards to it.
I mean, it's the first book he published, so it's
right.
Everything gets better from there.
He grows.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just went online and looked up which ones to get first and just bought a bunch of them.
Yeah. Well, either way, thanks, Drew. Have a good rest of your evening.
Yep, you too.
Honestly, we should get paid by Tor because this show is basically sponsored by Brandon Sanderson.
Indeed.
So much marketing.
Next.
Yeah, we can do another one. Thank you to let's see, where were we? Sally Czar, Purple Ray Q, So Many Things, Brand New Cam, Fragbite Light, Breaking Dreams, Laja 25, Natty Ferg, Brekky 1, John G 365. Oh, Brekky did sub after I misunderstood. Manly Puppet, Tahizi, PJ Muggsy, Community Streams, Justin C. Scott for 16 months, and then Joe Badiah. Thank you for the gifted community sub as well. How are you guys doing in Twitch chat? I don't know who Riot Wafflefoot is. Presumably somebody who works at Riot. They work for Riot Games on the Valorant team, and they are in my Twitch chat arguing that Elantris is not his weakest whenever that's the generally agreed upon weakest book in Brandon Sanderson stuff. I don't know what you would think is weaker. It's definitely his weakest. I think he considers it his weakest. So, yeah. What are we talking about next in Twitch chat?
This next caller, I think, is from Australia or New Zealand. I'm not sure. But either way, it's going to be somewhat robot-y, but it sounds hilarious, so we're doing it.
Okay. Rawnblade is here. Rawnblade, where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Sydney, Australia.
Okay. Are you in a loud room?
No, I've just gone into like a super quiet room. Maybe my connection is not amazing.
No, it is just funny. It's I don't know. It's not terrible, but it sounds like you're in like a kitchen or something. What were you
Also,
saying?
doesn't it sound exactly like that effect that they apply in movies and games to like the glitchy person will be like hello kind of thing, you know,
a
like
little bit,
yeah.
little bit, yeah. Rawnblade calling in on the communication device. Rawnblade, what do you want to talk about on the show?
So my take is that CLG is the most underrated team this year.
Another one of these every year. All right, give me the annual CLG's underrated take.
I should be clear that I'm not like a mad CLG fanboy or anything. I just wanted to sit on the show. But I actually think that people are heavy underrating this team. So just to kind of go through it, you've got 3 out of 5 players were all at Worlds last year. Obviously, Finn on Rogue, they had pretty rough Worlds. But at the same time, Rogue was #1 regular season in the LEC. Like he's been on a team that knew how to win. And it's possible, sometimes things happen at Worlds. And so, the team that won LCS last split probably won at Worlds. So it's possible that, if he can find some of the form that helped him to contribute to Rogue's wins in LEC, then he can be solid. I think Broxah is super underrated right now because, people forget that Team Liquid had their best regular season result ever. In Summer Split last year, they went 15-3. And then at Worlds, Team Liquid beat G2 and Suning, who both were really strong teams in the tournament, once in their group. And I think people are just kind of writing off a lot of the good stuff that they showed. And that was on a team where they didn't really play his style at all. So I think Brox is pretty strong. I think you look at Wild Turtle again, he was on West, who took a game off Top Esports. If Ignite hadn't entered, they probably could have taken the game off DRX as well. And the team put in a really solid performance at Worlds after a strong performance last year. And Total was a big part of that. And so then I guess you come to the remainders from CLG. You've got Hauntzer and Smoothie. Again, these guys, sure, recent results are bad, but they have reasonably high peaks that we've seen before. And so I don't think it's that crazy to think that this team is an upper half team. I guess as much as I'm more saying they're underrated because I'm seeing people saying that they're bottom tier, that, some people are even suggesting they could be as bad as some of the teams that have 5 rookies or whatever. So I'm not saying they're going to be #1, but I definitely think they could be an upper half team. I don't think that's crazy.
Twitch chat is having so much fun with you.
Can't you guys just see it? The AI floating blue head that's twitching and it's the systems have been damaged. And
Invert in chat says maybe this color sounds like this because he's from the future.
I'm excited to listen back to this later and hear my sci-fi style.
It's incredible because it's just bad enough to believe that it's an intentional filter effect that someone has applied to. It's actually so weird.
Yeah.
It's like you're the AI of CLG's optimism.
So I agree to get onto the take and to ensure that we have less robot for a little bit. I agree that Broxah got more hate than he deserved on TL. I think there were a lot of times where people felt like he just wasn't on the same page, but it wasn't necessarily that he was bad or inting or anything like that. Honestly, the player that I'm most worried about on that team is Smoothie. Because I feel like for the entire existence of Hotline League, which is now going into its 3rd year, all I've ever heard is Mark be he just has been on every team now, and he over communicates, and his problems don't seem to get solved, and all this stuff. I like Smoothie a lot individually.
I said that was in specific response to CLG saying that he was the answer.
Honestly, the campaign against Smoothie that Mark has ran on this show.
I literally said it was only because of how their management presented his hiring. It wasn't oh, he's a mechanical playmaker, which I think is a good case that you would make for Smoothie. It was, I don't know. We're off topic.
We are off topic. I stand by that. I am most concerned about Smoothie. I think that we'll see. I know that Wild Turtle and Smoothie are cool. I think they're even roommates, and so maybe they're going to get along really well, and that will, because oftentimes that stuff does. If you guys are talking about the game all day and you're you have the same vision and you want to play with each other and all that stuff. That's a lot. That can lead you to a lot of successful situations. But I don't know. I just the CLG off season is like everything you would expect to have in a CLG off season. It's like they brought in a lot of players that. They brought in several players that teams were not maybe enthusiastic about. That, like, this is not a development team. It's what you, Mark. I think you said this about. I think you said this in your power rankings video about CLG, where it's like they've constructed the. Was it them that you said they've constructed the team that like is kind of the old school style of constructing a team where it's not. It's a team that's neither going to make it to Worlds, but also not about developing long-term talent, and so it's just kind of like middling. I don't know if that was CLG or a different team you were talking about.
It was them and EG that I kind of had an opinion on.
Yeah.
I think one thing to the caller's point that I myself have probably fallen victim to, and a lot of people are going to fall victim to, is their opinion on how this roster was created and the pessimism around its purpose. And the fact that it'll be middling with the fact that like the actual skill level of the team. Because to the caller's point, I could totally see a world, and like in some ways I even agree, CLG is the most underrated team right now as people talk about them. Like people kind of hate this roster compared to Golden Guardians roster, which people are excited about, even though they expect Golden Guardians to suck compared to CLG. So I actually can agree with the caller's take that this is probably the most underrated roster on a skill level. Or hype level maybe. I don't know. Where
did you place them on your thing? Was it
so
seven?
I put them 7th. I put them just above the like kind of development tier teams that I kind of labeled, with FlyQuest being the one exception that kind of broke out for me. And I will say, like in that video I also said I could easily see a world where CLG is like FlyQuest of old, where you have a bunch of good players, ideally top 5 in their positions, that then don't need the superstar and can actually perform quite well. I could see a world where CLG is top 4, top 5, off of working well together as a team, not having a ton of egos, everyone looking to prove themselves. Moon, like I said, did good in his academy coaching stint. So like, I could see them being like 4th, which I would say means that they're pretty underrated right now, if myself and others are putting them 7th. But I also, like I said, believe that this team is a ceiling. So, and I'm the caller did a good job explaining why some of these people are probably underrated. Like 3 of them have been to Worlds and yada, yada, yada. But like, I think a lot of the people who did go to Worlds were arguably some of the weaker performing members on their teams,
right,
of those Worlds caliber teams. And like, when you start peeling the layers back off the initial like hype, you know, like Pobelter was the best player on CLG last year on a pretty bad team. And so hopefully this is an improvement, but like he was still a part of that team, you know, like you don't get to just totally scrub him squeaky clean again. So, you know, I am definitely, what is the opposite of I'm bearish, bullish, bearish?
Yeah, I just get those confused about it.
Yeah, whatever. Not optimistic about him.
You're bullish, I think, means you're optimistic about it.
Right, so
you're bearish.
I'm bearing down on him. I don't know.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's what it is. You're bearing. I don't know. My financial advisor's in the chat, who handles all the stock stuff. He'll probably answer in a second. Sorry, what were you going to say, Rawnblade?
I was just going to say, I think there is an opportunity. Like, we could see Brox as a carry come back. I think that's part of the thing I'm thinking about there. And I guess I'm also thinking that, like, between Pobelter and Smoothie, that's a lot of LCS finals appearances. And that you've got, you know, like, I do think the ceiling is pretty high if they can all get back to peak form.
You know who's had a lot of success is Froggen. Past success does not determine future success in a lot of cases, right? Like, yes, a lot of these players have had they've made it to world finals and that type of thing. That doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be like all-star talent, you know.
I mean, Travis, I know that you're willing to risk the wrath of the Froggen stance, but maybe I'm not so willing to do that.
Yeah, I'm not trying to dog on Froggen. I'm just saying, like, Froggen's not on an LCS team this year, and I feel like it's because a lot of people don't think he is, like, great anymore. And I think that...
For sure, but I feel like it's a lot longer. Like, it's not that long ago that Pobelter and Smoothie were literally against each other in LCS finals they went against each other. So I feel like it's a lot. You go a bit further back to.
When was the last time that Smoothie was in the LCS finals? I don't think it was that recent.
It's like Cloud9 TSM, I guess. So it's not that recent, like 2018, is that?
That would have been 2017, because 2018 was when Double If TL happened, and Pope Belter was in those finals. To your point, you know, he won 2 finals in 2018, so that's 3. I guess that's 3 years removed now, because then 2019, 2020 happened. So now we're in 2021.
But like Smoothie was in the like Jensen's Onions final, right?
Yep.
Yeah. I don't know. We'll see. I mean, Lord knows every time we get a CLG's underrated take.
Oh, spring 2019? That was Smoothie with.
Was it?
With Sven? Is that not?
So hard to keep track of these.
Was that not?
Either way.
Was that not Zazel?
Zazel.
Yeah,
Zazel
that's why I'm like, what are people talking about? Zazel was in for 2018 C9 run.
Yeah,
So how is he?
Smoothie hasn't been around on C9 since the great benching.
Yeah.
Anyway, we'll see if C9 does well. But I appreciate the call, Rawnblade. We're going to move on to a break in a second. But do you have any shout-outs that you want to make first?
Yeah, I just want a quick shout out to Dr. Manhattan and Rico in the waiting room who allowed me to go first because I have a work meeting in 15 minutes because it's daytime here. So thank you to those guys. And yeah, shout out to Emily Rand, who's very excited that she's going to be on the broadcast this year. And just, you know, Travis, I hope just continuing like Yahoo Esports alum, getting jobs. And just shout out to you guys as well for the great content that I have. Think about how many hours of Travis and Mark content I've consumed over the years. It's a lot. So yeah, thanks, Tim.
Rawnblade, I know you probably can't see this right now, but I just want to say thank you for the shout outs. But also, sitting next to me is a pack of one of your fellow Australians.
Oh yeah, I saw this on Twitter.
Yeah, Kobe and I have been eating a bunch of Australian snacks lately, and so I've been sucking because I haven't been feeling well tonight, so I've been sucking on these eucalyptus Aussie drops, which were part of the pack. Either way, thank you, Ron.
I was still addicted to those things in high school. They were like 30 cents a pack at the campaign.
Yeah, they're pretty good.
Buy,
Shout out to Aussie drops by CTC Australia. They're fantastic. Anyway, thank you so much to Rawnblade for the call. Have a good one.
Yeah.
See you, dude.
Okay. What?
Nothing, never mind.
What were you saying, Mark?
No, nothing. I'll get the next caller, right?
No, wait. We're going to take a quick break. You didn't hear me say that? You didn't hear me say we're going to take a break?
I was talking to people in Discord.
Okay. Anyway, it's time, everyone. It's time for me to see if I can show this on the screen. I think I'm going to be able to show it. 1 second. While I figure this out, I want to say thank you to... Oh, here we go. I want to say thank you to our returning sponsor this evening, which is Draftbuff. A lot of you know that they were with us last year for... Oh, man, a lot. They've actually been around with us for a while now, I think, most of last year. And they have all sorts of fun fantasy stuff coming back at you this year. And... they've done a bunch of work during the break, which I think is really exciting to see. For instance, let's see, I can show this to you now, I believe. Let's see if this works. You can now operate a ton of your leagues and do a whole bunch of stuff on the website, which I know some people were telling me before that they wanted to not have to use the app. So now you can use the website. So you can just go to draftbuff.com. Actually, in the chat right now, if you do !draftbuff, a ton of that stuff will come up. But I did. I created earlier a fantasy league, and I brought in a bunch of different people. I selected 6 different folks that follow me on Twitter and replied to join up and be part of this league. Unfortunately, apparently, I'm 7th in the draft, as I just found out. But you can do all sorts of cool stuff on here. And again, you don't need the app anymore. The apps are great. I think the apps are fantastic. But for instance. They have a whole lot of interesting things on here. For instance, I just said that twice. For instance, I'll say it a third time. They give you some fun little analysis now on a bunch of these players that you can see So if you're trying to figure out what you want, maybe you have a friend who's new to the LCS, and maybe they watched Worlds last year or something like that, and you want to have them join up. They can read some of the analysis and see the rankings of the different players and all sorts of cool stuff. So you can go through and do that. And I'm trying to, let's see, if I'm pulling up my notes here because they did a whole bunch of other stuff. Also they are changing it so that I know a bunch of you guys were participating in draft royales last time. Let me see if I can, hang on, I'm going to switch back to me so you guys can see me. They did a bunch of draft royales last time, or I ran a bunch of them, but they now are doing them seasonally. So you don't need to join new contests every single week. You can simply check the current one and set a new team for the week. So that's really cool for the folks that don't want to go and like try to find another draft royale every single time. Anyway, you can go to draftbuff.com. You can sign up and use code Travis Gafford, which helps me. And you can, in chat right now, if you're watching live, you can do exclamation mark Draftbuff, and you'll get a link to sign up. And that's pretty cool. But yeah, they're also going to do a draft royale, which the Twitch chat will have a link for whenever you use that command. You can also check, if you're watching on YouTube, into the description box, and you'll see links for this stuff as well. So anyway, we want to thank Draftbuff so much for coming back as a sponsor again this year. It is really cool to see them continue to build out their product, respond to user feedback. And speaking of that, I just want to say they're one of the things I really like about them as a partner is we actually have a Draftbuff chat on my Discord. So you go to discord.gg/Travis. You can join the Draftbuff discussion, find people to play with, find folks to chill with, and give feedback, advice. And then they're in there too. They can answer some questions if you have any. So thank you so much, Draftbuff, for continuing to sponsor the show. We're happy to have them as a partner. Mark, you want to grab the next caller?
Sure.
And by the way, they're in the Twitch chat right now if anybody wants to talk to them as well. They're always hanging out, which it's just cool to see them always connecting with folks. Mark is grabbing the next caller, and they're already here. Dr. Manhattan returning to the show. How's it going, Dr. Manhattan?
Doing all right.
Doing all right. Okay, very good. Wait, are you still in DC?
Yes.
Are you doing all right?
As well as I possibly can be.
Yeah. All right, very good. Well, hang in there, please. I know it's spooky.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, what do you want to talk about on the show?
It's kind of my hot take in regards to TSM this season, more specifically looking at who they decided to field in the academy and how it speaks volumes as to how they feel about their current roster. And my take is before the midseason point comes up or around that point, I fully expect Hauntzer and Cody to basically be integrated into this team as like starters for the remainder of the year.
This is a fun TSM take. I mean, not to diminish the one that we had earlier, but I think this is super fascinating. So if you say that they're filling their academy team with these players, presumably you're arguing these are their like backups for top and ADC?
Yes.
So why not start these two players?
That's actually a good, honestly, like that's how I feel about the top lane situation right now. Like, I honestly don't see like why there's a player who one knows the system, has worked with Bjergsen and some of the other coaching staff, and has been on the team, who looked, in my opinion, better than Huni. Maybe they want more of a carry threat, but again, like when you consider how Huni has looked all of 2020, like is Huni in any way an upgrade over Hauntzer? Because I would say that Hauntzer performed much better than Huni pretty much the entire of 2020. I mean, maybe that's just me.
I think you can say that. I thought Hauntzer played especially well in summer. I think you can start getting into the case about like teammates and stuff. But at that point you're starting to come up with excuses basically. For summer I thought Hauntzer played better than Huni. Yeah, absolutely on stage at least.
Yeah, and I think people are a bit harder on Cody, but like the thing that like why I have more faith in Cody over Lost is one, Lost is relatively unproven. When you compare him to Cody, I mean Cody's been to what 3 worlds, three finals. I mean I can understand if people think he's kind of a known quantity. That's a fairer argument again versus potential in like someone like Lost, and maybe this works well with Sword Art, but again, like I think that some of the harshness of Cody, I think it can't all be put on him. As far as 103, first of all, he wasn't really given, in my opinion, a fair shot considering it's a bot lane and that's a 2v2, and neither of the supports he played with in the entirety of 2020 were particularly impressive. So that I don't think that can all be attributed to him.
I just ran a poll in Twitch chat, by the way. It's almost 50-50, slight edge to Huni about whether or not Hauntzer will replace Huni this year. So it feels like a lot of people that are watching the show are also similarly skeptical about Huni's ability to maintain his position over Hauntzer. Mark, are you okay over there? Oh, you're bringing it up. Okay.
He's messing with Ashley's notebooks.
Great. Destructive creatures. I don't know, Mark, what do you think of this? Do you think both of them will replace? Do you think either of them will replace?
Well, so it's important to note that it's largely independent because Lost becoming a NA resident, as funny as that sounds, with the merger with the OS region means that this substitution doesn't need to come together. It's not like, if Huni's underperforming, they need to do something to get Hauntzer in the lineup or, whatever. Like these players can all be swapped independently. So on that front, I think, Dogman Hat raises a good point that they clearly targeted, I think, what people view as the two biggest question marks on the team and have viable LCS ready backups to go. That said,
they have a very viable mid laner ready to go.
Yeah. That one's just waiting. PoE, I know your CS numbers aren't quite where I want them to be, so I'm just going to play this week until you step up.
I released this, I think, after Hotline League the last time, but people should go watch my Bjergsen interview because he actually does talk about the conversation he had with PoE, where PoE was like, so
yeah,
if I have like a couple off weeks, anyway, people should go watch it. But sorry, continue, Mark.
So anyways, I was going to say, I think that it was a smart decision by the management to kind of guard themselves if they need to make roster moves, but I think I still ultimately agree with their decision around the people they started, despite me saying that, I think Hauntzer had a better split than Huni. I think Huni needs a team to play around him and needs a good team to play around him. He's going to play Huni's way, and if you're not backing him up, he'll just die or whatever. It feels like he's 100% all full steam ahead, and you just have to catch up to him because you're not slowing him down. So in that regard, I can see where having a good team around him will be very important, as well as the fact that I think all the people in the scene seem to still hold Huni in high regard. So whether or not he was inting and running it down on stage means that, people still seem to think he was doing well in scrims. I mentioned it in the YouTube video that that kind of reminds me of Piglet towards the end of his career, where people still knew he was a beast mechanically and he was doing very well in scrims. People hated laning against him in scrims, but he wasn't getting results in the LCS. So I'm actually really eager to see if Huni will buck that trend and return to form. But I can see why TSM would give him that opportunity first if you think that he has had a higher ceiling than Hauntzer, and you can do more with him in terms of playing around him if they want to do that. I can see why they start him. Same kind of situation with Lost over Cody Sun. Cody's good. I think he's really good. I think it makes sense why they picked him up, but there's a feeling probably to the caller's point about known quantity versus how much better can Lost get? Has he really had his opportunity to shine? And with Sword Art beside him, can he potentially become like FBI and become one of the best AD carries in the league? And I think he's also more aggressive. I think maybe TSM wants that. Cody is really solid in mid to late game team fights, and
that's something else I was going to say as well. That's a world where I can see where there has to be some stylistic difference as to why they would want Lost over Cody. Again, I think Summer was a very good. I think in spring Cody was more than serviceable, even with Stunt not being amazing. I thought he was in the top half of bot laner, at least in spring. So maybe limited sample size, but people saying he was bad all year, that's not true at all.
Right. So I think, I don't think it's Cody's bad. I think it's just more hey, this Lost is a more aggressive player probably who we think has a higher ceiling. So let's go with him. And then you still bring Cody on as kind of an insurance policy. So I think, maybe if things aren't working well, I think you're absolutely right that these replacements could very quickly happen. If halfway through the season the players aren't gelling and they're let's swap it up. I could see that happening for sure. especially because you can't take all of spring now to learn how your roster works. Before you could kind of punt spring doesn't matter, haha, lel. But like now, if you run it down for the first half of spring, or I mean for all of spring, then like when you swap in summer, you still have that int record.
I mean, yes and
carried
no.
over.
We're setting 8 teams to playoffs again, so.
Well, sure, but I just mean like the record still follows you. You know, like you can still get into playoffs. That's not hard, but you know, if you want to be in the top half of the bracket to make your road much easier.
Yeah, that's fair. I do think it'd be hilarious if Hauntzer ends up on the team, like within one split of double if Bjergsen and Biofrost all having been on the team, and then none having been on the team. It's like, oh, so close.
Well, I think what happens is Bjergsen comes back in, takes PoE's job, and double lift unretires, and then the band's back together.
What about Biofrost? I mean, he's taking the split. I don't think he's even on a team, so I guess they could.
I was gonna say, is he subbing for someone?
I think he's just like taking the time off. I don't think he's associated with the team. He's going streamer. So maybe people can believe that.
Tweet at Coach Bjerg to bring back 2016 TSM.
Dr. Manhattan, I think it'll be interesting to see how prescient your prediction is. I would guess that one, but not both of those things will happen. Like if you told me they swap one of those two players, although again we've been hearing some good rumors about how they've been doing, so I don't know, but I wouldn't be surprised if we see one of those things happen. I don't know if we'll see both. I don't know, some people are really more excited about Huni than Lost, but I feel like Huni's more the question mark. He has to really kind of prove it, I feel like. Anyway, thanks so much for the call. Anything you want to say before we go on to our last caller?
Nah, just shout out to Draftbuff and Alienware. And yeah, just good being here as always.
Yeah, thanks so much. Have a good rest of your evening.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. On to our last caller. By the way, I see Marcy from Alienware in the chat. She says, congrats on first Hotline League of 2021. Hopefully later in the year we can work on a live version. I would love that. Hopefully everything clears up and we're able to do some in-person events again. Rico Suave is returning the show. Rico, I've already reached out to Alienware about the code not working on the headset. We're gonna get that figured out.
It's too late.
Too late? Okay. Well, you and I can talk later. We'll figure something out. What do you want? Where are you calling from?
New York City.
New York City. What do you want to talk about on the show?
I want to talk about how FlyQuest will be the top 2 teams in North America.
The FlyQuest will be both of the top 2 teams?
Will be one of the...
There's going to be such a gap that like a team is pushed down to 11th place. So they're going to be a top 2 team. Who's the other team?
I've been thinking about that, and I would actually have to argue TL being first.
Okay, so FlyQuest...
C9 flops.
C9 flops. TSM and 100T trailing behind FlyQuest.
Yeah, actually.
I mean, props to FlyQuest, by the way, because at the start of last year, nobody would have even called about them, other than maybe to say, like, FlyQuest should be booted from the league. Now people are quite passionate. So why do you feel this, Rico?
All right. So, Licorice, best top lane in North America. Jose Diodo was the best jungler in his league back in LLA. Proved it in the international stage, and I can see him as being a huge impact in the LCS. He got 2 promising features in Diamond and Palafox. They both smashed Academy and 2 seasons, and they're LCS ready. They're probably way better, already ahead of all the other players in the roles already. And Johnson, everybody knows that he's a very promising AD carry, and with most of with the jungler, mid laner, AD carry support, having a veteran like Licorice guiding them, you could already see FlyQuest already reaching expectation, and then FlyQuest will finally not be considered underrated. And of course, the best reason, the Team America. Come on.
Okay. So I think they're Team North America because they have at least a Canadian and a Latin America player on. But okay, this reminds me a lot of the call. Maybe it was the first call we had where somebody was arguing that 100T was going to be a top 2 team. Where those are all good reasons for why FlyQuest can be good this year, but they're not necessarily reasons as to why they're going to be better than C9, for instance. So, like, that's my big struggle with this. Is like you're getting me hyped for FlyQuest, but I don't know how we're going to send Palafox against Perks and get and come out the other side of that looking good. Rico.
All right. Yeah, so with that, I guess the best argument I can come up with that is, well, C9 was great in the spring, coming to summer, they boom, might happen again. And the big question mark, the reason why I did put TL first instead of C9 is, no offense, really, really question Rainover. Like, yeah, he did great in C9 Academy, but that's because he had great weapons. Doesn't make you a good coach all the time.
Okay.
I mean, I think that's fair, at least to say that there's not just the roster stuff to consider, but like the team has. I mean, there is still some carryover from other parts of the staff, but there is a changeover with the head coach. I mean, I would also say I'm a relatively optimistic person for FlyQuest as well, but you can't get me up to top 2 because, like, other people have teams that could work out as well, and if they start working out. Like Palafox versus Insanity. I think Palafox looks better on a very stacked C9 in Academy, but Insanity was going up against LCS players and looked okay. Like why can't Immortals be top 2 if everything works out? Xerxes is back to being one of the best junglers in the league. Raze is as good as FBI. I almost said newbie, not newbie. I'm brain farting on support. For Raze. Destiny, there we go. Steps up, becomes a lot better. Like Revenge shows at why he's got 2 times this, like it can all happen that way. It's just very unlikely. And like I still feel very optimistic for FlyQuest because I feel like they have the best, most highest ceiling of the development rosters. Licorice is a superstar. The talent is already somewhat proven. And Jose Dioto could actually be a beast, and then you have a threat in the bot side if Johnson is actually playing well, or at least a consistent carry in the bot side if Johnson's playing well. You have your threat in the top lane. Palafox is good and can play different styles to support that. It can all work, and I can see their play style coming together, but. That's like, okay, so TSM can't become good, and 100 Thieves has to regress from where they were last split probably, or well, where Golden Guardians was last split, and C9 has to flop, and then they're top 2, which is just so much stuff. And EG can't work out. EG can't randomly actually be good, and Jizuke can't carry them. Maybe we should include CLG can't work out. CLG can't become the power friendship team. There's so many like other teams in the league that could work out,
Yeah. I mean, what has been nice about this episode, Rico, with you and with callers calling about 100T, etc., is that I do feel more optimistic about the middle of the pack teams. I have an interview coming out tomorrow that people should go check out. It's probably up shortly after the time that this video goes live. If you're watching the VOD, where I interview the EG management, so Greg and Peter Dunn over there, who Peter had like really impressive things to say about the team that he built and also about his own experience. I mean, obviously he's an amazing coach and has proven it a lot by bringing teams that people didn't expect to Worlds. So I don't know. There's a lot of reasons I think to be excited about a lot of these teams, but oh man, it's just when people start to place a lot of these players up against Perks, and he comes out swinging, or as Sven is able to really pop off, and it's just gonna be really tough, I think, to move ahead of C9. So we'll have to see. Maybe they'll look weak in the beginning, and we'll start to see some other teams move into that spot. I mean, we didn't really talk about the tournament too much. I think because we're
No.
also trained to talk about the split, and I think, Mark, you referenced this a little bit too, where it's like, well, there might be some visa issues, I'm not sure, but I am very curious to see who wins the tournament, and I think there's a chance that it could end up not being a TL or C9, and at least starting an interesting narrative. Maybe it'll be FlyQuest, and we'll all be like, well, Rico predicted this.
I mean, if FlyQuest, as 5 new players coming together, or at least on a new org, 5 new players coming together, some of them imports from a different region, you know, if they can even get finals of the tournament, that would be super fucking impressive.
Yeah.
That would be nuts.
Yeah, and FlyQuest isn't like a team you just threw in together like Immortals did or Golden Guardians. You know, it kind of makes sense why they would have the players that they have all in one team.
Yeah. Well, hey, thank you, Rico, for the call. Anything you want to shout out before we wrap up the show?
3 shout outs. 1, Alienware, bought your stuff. Give Travis credit. Shout out to Draftbuff. And shout out to my draft league, Diamond Who. And last shout out to the New York City League of Legends Facebook group. Have a good night, guys.
Shout out to the New York City League of Legends Facebook group. You guys are great. Big fans. Thank you, Rico, for the call. All right. That is the show. What were you going to say, Mark?
I was gonna say it was cool to get a lot of like the OG Hotline League people on this episode. Rico, Dr. Manhattan, Blue Jay was in chat, but I didn't end up pulling him.
I think there were 1 or 2 other people that we got on that were.
Yeah.
It did feel kind of like a.
So someone did have tech problems. They had internet problems that I had them in the waiting room, and they had a question I thought was interesting that I'll throw out really quick to you, and then we can be done.
Yeah.
He was asking. This is Joe. He was asking, what do rookie teams need to do in the LCS this year to advance their LCS careers further? So the teams like Golden Guardians, Immortals, Dig, you know, where we're not expecting them to win. What do you, like, us on the outside want to see to be like, that was a success? Because 9th can still be a successful Golden Guardians in this paradigm, right?
I think they either need to land significantly ahead of teams. Like, actually a great example of this. We had that call last year, at the end of last year, that was like CLG is the make it or break it. Like, you need to be able to surpass CLG in your placing, because if a bunch of what people consider to be washed up rookies, I'm not saying they are, but if the general perception is CLG's running like sort of the leftovers from other teams, and you can't beat those, then maybe you're still not LCS caliber.
Yeah, for me, I don't even think beating them in the game is what matters so much as going toe-to-toe in the first 20 minutes of the game and laning phase. I would expect teams like Golden Guardians and Dig and even Immortals to like fall apart if they don't win in 25 minutes. But like, if you can watch Revenge duke it out with Finn or duke it out with Impact and like be okay, then like, why are you not getting a cheaper player with more potential? You know, I think that's what success means for me. Like, if Golden Guardians gets 10th, but Niles does okay against the top laners, then like, yeah, that's good for him. It might not be enough for me to, as like Golden Guardians, to want to rerun this roster, but maybe next year, if cash flow is better, Niles is your top laner, and you import a mid and jungle to support him.
Yeah, I guess I was thinking about it from the player perspective, because you said specifically like, what do these players need to do to make people feel like, but from a team perspective, for sure, if you are Golden Guardians and you have spent pennies on your roster in comparison to some of these other teams, like I'm hopeful that we can find out what the total salaries are for a lot of these teams. I know that some people can do some quick math and maybe try to fill in the blanks based off of some of the stuff that's been reported in the offseason. But if we can find out what these teams are paying, like, let's say, what if CLG is paying 3 times the amount as Golden Guardians, and CLG places 9th and Golden Guardians places 10th, but it's just like barely behind CLG. It's like, at that point in time, your Golden Guardians are like, I mean, it could be worse. We could be paying 3 times as much and getting 1 place ahead.
and people will just have a better narrative around the people on the roster, right? Like a development roster versus, like we said, a bunch of veterans.
Yeah.
People will be happy for Golden Guardians.
Joey G357, who is the person that was trying to get in, he's in the Twitch chat right now saying his ISP is having issues. He says his answer to this is if they can get a couple of wins over established teams, I feel it will be a success to see new players beat the known players. So it's kind of what you were talking about, Mark, where I mean, for him, it's a little bit higher of a bar because he wants them to see wins. It's not just the first 20 minutes, but it is like if you can show that you are this caliber and you can go to toe-to-toe, then that's worth it.
Yeah, because I think the reality is if you're weaker in 4 out of 5 positions than the other team, come mid to late game, you're probably going to get outperformed. But if you are the one guy who's better than his opponent, demonstrate that to me through the first 20 minutes of the game before the team's mismatch kind of becomes more apparent.
Do you think that if you are a fan of, if you want teams and fans to be excited about development in the LCS, that you should be actively rooting against CLG and Dignitas this year?
I don't think you have to be rooting against a specific team to be cheering the mentality of another team.
Yeah.
I don't think they're it's going to happen. I mean, a lot of people, if CLG fails, are going to relish that fact, which feels bad, I think, for the players.
Yeah.
Because it's not even like people are mad at the players, they're mad at the org, but it's going to get, like, they're going to become the receptacle as the face of that org, the ones on the Rift.
Right.
And I think a lot of people, if Golden Guardians or Immortals or Dignitas outplaces CLG, people will punch CLG for that, being like, look, you idiots, haha, you lost to these guys. So it will happen, but I don't think you should have to want to beat up CLG to want to see the other people, like the other.
I guess I meant rooting against the org rather than the players, right? Like, I don't think people need to be like, oh, I want to see Brock.
I'm saying for both.
Lose, but
I don't think you need to be like, see CLG, you idiots, to be like, hey, Revenge actually look pretty good. Like those are just different things that shouldn't be equated, but will be.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, no, that was a good call that we weren't able to have Joey, but I apologize that we weren't able to have you on. I know that you were having some internet issues, so hopefully we can get you on in the future. But I really did like that question, that conversation around, like, what do these other teams need to do?
I think it's going to be
something.
An important question to answer as a broadcast for fans in the coming year with so many development teams is like, well, you're not looking at them to win against C9. So, like, what do you want?
Yeah.
They were never constructed to beat C9. So, like, what are they supposed to do?
No, I mean, I will say I am very happy that we have teams that have like lines that are not, well, we're going to Worlds. Worlds is our bar, which I feel like is what 70 to 80% of teams used to say in previous years. I feel like this is the first time where people are like, yeah, we don't want to spend $5 million on a roster. So, we're good. We're gonna try to like look decent and maybe sell our players to Steve next year. Mark, what do you got for us at the end here? What do you want to shout out, plug? Your power rankings.
Watch the power ranking video if you missed it. It was a lot more. I mean, it was informing a lot of what we talked about, or at least I talked about in this video. So you can check that out on Travis's channel. Otherwise, if you don't know, hey, lock-in tournament Friday. It's only a couple days away. Make sure to watch.
It is, yes. And I'm very curious. I mean, we didn't talk too much about the lock-in tournament. I feel like nobody knows what to expect. It's really weird. I mean, it's, I think, exciting, but it's going to be very different to start the year with a tournament. So I think that's part of the reason why you haven't seen too many people talk or cover it, because I don't think we really know how to cover it yet. So, but I'm excited for that for sure. On my end, the YouTube channel is going to start having content again. That'll be nice for the first time in like 3 weeks, almost a month. So I really hope for that. Also, I know I shouldn't tease sponsorships, especially since the last one fell through for silly reasons, but we should have a really cool sponsor coming up soon on Hotline League. So hopefully that ends up happening. Other than that, thanks everyone for watching. Sorry we started late. Thank you to everyone who subbed. If you stick around, I'll shout out your name if you subbed. I know I didn't get to everybody. And this has been Hotline League, episode 155.